Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel, and today I'm really happy to be presenting on behalf of my co-authors our work capturing people's opinions about copyright for Gen AI art. As probably all of you are at least somewhat aware, there's a lot of debate on Gen AI and copyright law. One of the main debates is whether training Gen AI violates the copyright of the training data, but another important question focuses on whether whatever Gen AI models generate is eligible for copyright protection. And this has been quite controversial. A US court said the no, but a court in China has said the yes. Most of the prior work on this topic has been mostly normative, arguing that something should be in a particular way and should not be a particular way. But people's opinions about this topic are also extremely important when you remember that one of the main objectives of Gen AI is to empower lay people to create art, not artists to create art. People's opinions are also extremely important in the context of copyright law because it relies on people understanding its financial incentives so that they are motivated to continue creating original works. Our main objective with this project is to capture people's opinions so that they can be embedded in future legal scholarship and future policymaking. With that in mind, we formulated three main research questions. First, we looked at how people evaluated several AI-generated images concerning the creativity, effort, and skills involved in the creation process. Creativity, effort, and skills are some of the factors that are considered in different jurisdictions to determine whether something is eligible for copyright protection. We also examine who lay people believe are the authors of AI-generated images among the user, the person who prompted the model itself, data contributors, and the company that developed the model. And finally, we explore who lay people believe should hold the rights that are granted by copyright protection among the entities that I just mentioned, but also whether people believe that it should be part of the public domain, meaning that no one should have exclusive rights over the AI generated image by actually indicating that like anyone should have these rights. But an important component of copyright protection is that it grants real financial incentives, meaning that people may have different opinions on Gen AI copyright depending on whether they might gain or lose from it. Therefore, we wanted to compare the opinions of those who have something to gain from Gen AI protection, creators, right, the people who use these models, and those who have nothing to gain from it, just third-party evaluators. And that's why, in order to answer our research questions, we held incentivized online AI art competition where people competed for some financial award. In this presentation, I'm going to focus on potential egocentric effects. In other words, whether people prioritize and overestimate the quality of whatever they create. But we have other results in the paper, and I'm more than happy to also discuss them further. So let me explain exactly our experimental design. As I mentioned, this was an incentivized competition, meaning that the top 10 images were awarded 25 US dollars. Those assigned to this creator role use an AI model to generate an image for consideration at the competition and evaluated whatever they created. Those assigned to this investor evaluator role were also competing for the award. So they also used the AI model to generate something. They evaluated whatever they created, and they also evaluated four creations of creators. Finally, we had the condition of an uninvested evaluator. They were not competing for the award. Instead, they only evaluated four creations by creators. So let me also clarify a bit these egocentric effects that we're looking at. First, we hypothesized that creators would overestimate, for instance, the quality of whatever they create, then evaluators would evaluate the same image. Basically, because creators created something, they are going to think that whatever they created is better. On the other hand, evaluators, because they do not have this incentive to actually prioritize what other people created, they might evaluate these images lower. Because invested evaluators were competing in the competition and they evaluated both what they created and other people created, we can also look for egocentric effects by focusing on their evaluations. We hypothesize that investor evaluators would, of course, following egocentric effects, prioritize what they created. So now moving on to the results, looking at creativity, effort, and skills, we found that people believed that creativity and effort were required to create art with AI, but not necessarily skills, which also raises the question of whether AI-generated art has this modicum of creativity, which is often required in some countries to so that a specific work is eligible for copyright protection. An important thing to highlight here is that participants could not edit the images they created, they could only prompt the model, which could also have impacted judgments of skill. When we explore for these egocentric effects in these judgments, we find that people overestimate the creativity and effort when they have something to gain, but we did not observe any egocentric effects in judgments of skill. We also asked questions about authorship. And interestingly, we found that people consider both the user of the model and data contributors as authors. People were somewhat unsure, they neither agreed nor disagreed that the AI model should be an author, but people were against the idea of the company that developed the AI model to be an author. And what is really important here is to highlight that people recognize the role of data contributors instead of the developing company as an author, which is to some extent contrary to current practices that often end up benefiting large corporations that develop these models to the detriment of data contributors. When we looked for egocentric effects, we instead found the opposite direction. So people did not show egocentric effects, but they actually attributed less authorship to themselves than other people. The way that I interpret these results is that people could understood that authorship does not only encode these positive responsibilities, such as I can profit from whatever I create, but potential negative consequences. For instance, what if what I create infringes on someone else's creations? Looking at the attribution of rights, once more, we found that users and data contributors were often selected as right holders. So they believe that users and data contributors should hold some of these rights, but we did not find egocentric or competition or any other experimental effects of that we also explore in the study. But a distinction from how most of copyright law works is that copyright grants exclusive rights to one particular entity or a group of individuals. In contrast, we found a more distributed approach in people's judgments. It seems like people would support a more distributed distribution of these rights across several entities. Our results also raise the question of how we can compensate data contributors instead of large corporations, as I mentioned before. In the paper, we discuss how licensing models, neighboring rights, and a lot of computer science research could actually move this discussion forward. Another distinction that we found is that people differentiate between commercial and non-commercial use. When we asked about non-commercial rights, people were much more likely to indicate that anyone should be able to display or make copies of these images, which highlights the importance of differentiating between commercial and non-commercial use, which is extremely relevant to debates on fair use and the terms of service of these models. Another evaluation that participants had to a way that participants judged the images was also in terms of quality, and this evaluation really determined who got the reward. We observed really clear egocentric effects here. So creators and investor evaluators really overestimated the quality of whatever they created, which shows that whenever money is involved, people really show egocentric effects. But this is a bit in contrast to the imaginary rights that we asked. So when asked about actual financial awards, people were really egocentric and prioritized whatever they created. But when asked about imaginary rights, they did not show the same trend. And this raises the question of whether people would actually recognize data contributors as rights holders. So when asked about imaginary rights, maybe they deserve something, but if people were to lose some money, they might not really support data contributors being paid for their work, which might lead to a lot of conflicts of interests. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much. And if you're interested, please feel free to reach out. I'll be more than happy to to discuss this work further. Thank you.